Let's be honest. Most of us feel lonely at one time or another throughout our lives for many different reasons. Like you, I've been curious about my loneliness. Is it normal? Are there others that feel this way? Should I be embarrassed to feel lonely when from the outside my life seems great? To learn more about loneliness in all its forms, I'll speak with experts on our show On Loneliness, a video series about coping with feeling lonely created by the Roots of Loneliness Project, a first-of-its-kind resource that deeply explores over 100 types of loneliness to help you gain powerful insights and feel less alone.
The hardest part is that sometimes it seems like everybody else has someone.
Mhm.
Um, I don't have a super close relationship, romantic or otherwise, right
Mhm.
now.
Yeah.
So sometimes it seems like everybody has a spouse or a
Yeah.
best friend or um, their person,
Mhm.
and I don't.
Yeah.
So that's the hardest thing. And then of course, the typical things you think of, like, if you want to go to a party, you have somebody to take.
Yeah. Yeah.
And another thing is, I think, again, I really do think it's a really bad double standard. And I experienced this just this week, but like, you're taught before you get into high school, girls in these communities are poured self-worth and all of this stuff for the first part of their lives. And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden, they teach about a father who loves you for who you are, who loves everything about you. And then when it's time to get into the dating scene, it's like, well, you need to learn to compromise. You need to learn to, if God puts a man in your life, you need to be willing to be flexible. And the men are never told,
Yeah.
it is always, girls, grin and bear it and go to a baseball game with your man. And maybe he'll buy you food and you won't have to cook after you get back.
Yeah.
It is never, men are never encouraged and are in fact often discouraged from taking part in the things that their wives are interested in.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, at the time when I was young, I felt like it was sort of musical chairs,
Mhm.
that there was something that happened to you. You graduate high school, you go to college, maybe that was a maybe then.
Mhm.
You try to finish that, and then what happens? I mean, there's this whole checklist of things to do
Mhm.
that everyone has to do. And I feel like thankfully we have moved away from that in our society a lot. But even now, I still find myself feeling like this is not normal, that I should just live alone and be content. I think one of the main things for me is I used to tell myself, I have to have a man to retire with,
Mhm.
or I have to have a man to travel overseas with. I
Mhm.
have to have, maybe not a man, but a relationship, whatever the you fill in the gap. But I learned that I could do those things on my own, and it's scarier, yes, it's
Mhm.
more planning. But suddenly I stopped looking for someone externally to fulfill the things that I wanted to do.
Mhm.
And every once in a while, even now, I will still think, I should try dating again. You know
Mhm.
what? This could be a good thing. And it's not hideous, but there are moments. I will tell you, I tried online dating not too long ago, just
Mhm.
to, it had been 5 years since I'd had a date.
Yeah.
And one of the first people that reached out to me had murdered someone.
Oh, wow.
I think we have to get beyond the stigma of people who are different not being viewed as like potential romantic like partners. And like when you see the stigma that surrounds, like when you look at, people don't assume that like we want intimacy, and we like, they assume like we're asexual or like don't want any of those things. And that is just, the furthest thing from the truth. And so like how do we as a society like do better, and like how do I put myself out there more than what I'm already doing to like get people to see me as a potential, like, again, rather than me having to like do the like jump out on that limb, how much more refreshing would it be like if somebody came to me and like that was what they wanted, and then not that like I'm not willing to work for it, but like I don't think people like that doesn't happen. Like 9 times out of 10, like the person with the disability has to be the askee instead of the asker, you know, or the asker instead of the askee kind of thing. And that sucks because you're getting like I mean I clamor up when I have to like be vulnerable, which is like very ironic because I am not quiet. I'm not afraid to like talk, but you know when you have to go out on a limb like that, it's hard. And like I said, I've done it a couple of times and hasn't worked out like you would hope. And so that sucks because like I know for me, like I've lost friendships and I've lost people that were important because like you put yourself out there and then you know they don't feel the same way.
I'd say there are some benefits in that you certainly do have a lot of time to spend on yourself and focus on yourself, learn a bit more about yourself. And I think there's value in that. Even as you go into a relationship, you know more about what you want, what you need, what your preferences are. I'm more mature than I would have been if I had started dating at 18 or 16. But as I get older, the less advantageous it becomes because I'm kind of getting settled into that. And I mean, there are still benefits as far as having the time. But the loneliness settles in more. So I'm enjoying it less and less, but I do think there are benefits, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like women are more pressured because I feel like it's like for women, you're either in a relationship or you're not, because there's this notion of like, well, women aren't like sleeping around. Though like with guys, it's like, oh, like you're not in a relationship, but like you're just like being a guy and like, you know, you're getting with all the girls. So like you can have it both ways. You're either doing that or you're in a relationship. But for a girl, it's like, oh, are you in a relationship? And like, if you're not, then why not? Or like, are you dating? Or are you not trying to? So yeah, I think there's a bit more pressure with girls and guys.